Good morning. Hi, everyone. Whoops. Hello. I want to talk language and how we speak about our children with disabilities, different abilities, and how it can really start to affect people. I'll let y'all hop on. Good morning. Hi, everyone. It is colder than a hootenanny in Minnesota today. We're about 50 degrees colder in 3 days. It was 86 and now it's 30. 3 days. Hello. Hi from Texas. Where's everyone at? Tell me. Who's the farthest away from Minnesota? Good morning. Hi, all my friendly subscribers. Hello. Oh, yeah, I was going to do that. Hold on. Okay. California, yep. Everyone is at school today, which is wonderful. So Cooper, my kiddo on the spectrum, he really wants to go on a train ride. He really wants to take an Amtrak. But when you have a child who can struggle in certain situations, you don't just jump into the 3-day train ride because you don't know what's going to happen. So we want to start with the light rail, which we have so I live near St. Paul, Minnesota, and we have a depot, and there's a light rail that goes all over, but it goes to Minneapolis, which is another bigger suburb. And we've heard that it can be a little dicey sometimes, and we want to make sure it's super safe. So we're going to go through the day. During the day, we want to make sure there's good weather. We want to, hi Colleen in Duluth, Minnesota. I was just in Duluth. There are a bunch of autographed copies of my book at Thinkers. You should go get one. Excuse me. New York, Connecticut. So we're going to start with the light rail, and there's this thing that happens. I don't know if it's with just my children. It could be. But they get an idea in their head and suddenly it's gospel and they think it's going to happen. Hi, Margaret, Robert. And it's my 10-year-old does it too, who is neurotypical and verbal. And we'll be chatting and he'll be like, this is kind of how it would go. He'll be like, we should go to Grand Slam and hit baseballs tomorrow. And it'll keep progressing. And then the next day, he's like, aren't we going to Grand Slam to hit baseballs today? And I'll be like, no. And he's like, but you said we were. Well, my sweet Cooper, who is nonverbal, he does that in a nonverbal way. And it's, so he picked today. And I really, truly had no problem bringing him on the light rail this morning. But we got dumped with a bunch of snow. So I thought, let's wait one more day. And he's struggling a little bit. He's struggling, and I just wish I could fix it all, you guys. There's nothing harder than having your children struggle. I think all of you know that. I mean, we've all felt it. And with Cooper, my heart just breaks, and I can't fix all this stuff for him. I can't take his anxiety away. So his teacher actually suggested that we download this app called Marco Polo. Write that down. So it's an app where you can do videos back and forth. And this morning, before I had just gotten the app downloaded, and she sent me a video, and Cooper was having a really hard time. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to work this thing. I was like, literally, it was like making a pancake on a stick for Harbor and getting Winnie dressed. And I'm like, oh, the app, oh my gosh. So I sent him a video and I was like, hey buddy, let's take some deep breaths. Let's put our hand on our chest. Let's feel ourselves breathe. Let's have calm body and calm hands. And oh my gosh, it's so hard. It's so hard. There's no other way I'm gonna describe it. I wish I could fix every problem for him, but I can't. Luckily, he has a phenomenal team at school. I can't even tell you how wonderful his team is. I'm just blown away. They're going on a field trip. Just the special needs kiddos. I'm so excited. He did the field trip with the Gen Ed class. Now he's doing this one. He's in the right place. He's in the right place. But parts are getting harder. I'm sure you can all relate to that. Little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. So, I wanted to talk about language. And this is something that I might not have understood years ago. So I have this theory, and I think all of you are going to nod your head on this. We only know what we know. If we don't live it, we don't truly understand it. And that's a fact. I don't know how anyone could argue with that. Infertility, miscarriage, divorce, death, whatever it may be. I didn't understand, and I say this numerous times, I had no idea about cancer until my stepmom passed away from pancreatic cancer. I didn't know what it was like to watch someone deteriorate like that. I had no idea just how crushing that could be to watch. She was diagnosed, and then 2 years later, and it was just really hard to watch. And, before that, I was probably like, if someone talked about cancer, I was probably like, oh, I'm so sorry, but didn't truly understand it. That's how it was with autism for me. I didn't know anyone that had a child on the spectrum until Cooper. And the thing is, maybe I did. I just didn't, if that makes sense. I think we get so caught up in our own worlds. We get caught up in our own lives. That's human nature. So when I had a kiddo diagnosed with autism, suddenly our whole world changed. And how could it not? It just changed. And immersed in a whole different world. And having 4 kids, so my kid on the spectrum is 12. And then I have 3 neurotypical kids, 10, 4, and 1. And while I'm just mothering them all, and to me, they're all just my children, there are different parts where there's, sports and play dates and birthday parties, and do we get a cell phone, and when can he bike to the store for my 10-year-old? And Mom, why does this person not like me? And all that, right? It's different with Cooper. We have different challenges, and life is a lot of speech therapy and Miracle League, and how do we keep him engaged and active and entertained all summer when there are no programs for kids like him? And will he ever have a play date? Will he ever be able to go outside alone? So it's just, they're different paths. They are parallel. But they are different. And both have absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, amazing parts. I have the best kids. I've always said that. I have the best kids. As I'm sure you say too. The best kids who drive us absolutely crazy, right? And, excuse me, I'm sorry. I have a little bit of a cold. It's just a cold, I promise. So I learned pretty early on. Oh, the name of the app for Cooper and I, it's called Marco Polo. And it's really cool. Like, I send video messages, and then he can send me video messages. It's really cool. So his teacher suggested it. Highly recommend. We're just getting used to it, though. And I think I've shared this with my supporters. My dream is for Cooper to be able to text. That's my dream. I just like imagine this day. I don't know if he'll ever be able to verbally communicate, but I have this dream that one day he's going to send me, like, I'm going to have my phone and there's going to be like 500 text messages. And I know that may sound like a burden to some, but I can't even tell you. it like makes me giddy thinking about it. I would just love if he could text me. I think that would be so precious. That's my dream. And we're taking the steps to get there, right? But okay, so a little bit about our story to kind of set the scene. I knew something was going on with Cooper really early on. I think a lot of us parents can tell, look in our gut that something's going on. I didn't know what. I will never lie and say I knew what. I had no idea, but he was entirely nonverbal. He wasn't babbling. He was rigid. He was drawn to TV, didn't want to play, didn't know what toys were. I mean, it just kind of kept snowballing. And I knew something was going on. And I was approaching our pediatrician all the time. Our son just started texting. He's 20. Best thing ever. Marie, that's my goal. Is there anything you did to start? Do you just use a normal app? Okay, sorry. I'm very excited about that. That's a conversation for another day. But I'm so excited for texting. Sawyer has a gizmo. So Sawyer has like a watch. It's a very simple watch through Verizon, and it tells us his location, and he can just call us and message us. And he sent me, we got it for him on Friday, and he probably called me 20 times, and he texted me more. And I will tell you, I was never annoyed. It was just so precious. Like, it was like, I miss you, Mom. When are you coming home, Mom? We were gone for like 18 hours. And I was like, it was so sweet, and it was so cute, and it was really great. So, back to my original story. So, knew something was going on, but was met with a lot of resistance. All of you can relate to this, I'm sure. Relax, mama. Wait till he's 3. Calm down. Boys are late bloomers. Boys are lazy. Wait and see. He's fine. You're overreacting. I mean, I could just go through it and through it and through it. And it was such a conflicting time for me in my life. And many of you are going to relate to this, because I didn't want anything to be wrong with my son. I didn't want him to be delayed. I didn't want him to have something that would make his life harder. But I felt like I was also the only one advocating. I was the only one seeing it. I call it in my book the in-between space. So I was, is he or isn't he? No one believes me. I'm the squeaky wheel. I want to be wrong, but I'm right. I'm sure you can see how, all of you can relate to this. And this is pretty common. It caused a lot of fights between me and my husband at the time, Cooper's dad, because, he's like, nothing's wrong, Kate. And I was like, but there is. And we have to get him help. He needs help. He needs therapy. He needs speech. He needs OT and physical therapy and feeding therapy and play therapy, all the things, right? Early intervention. So I'll just touch on a few things that were said to me that if you came to one of my presentations, this is a slide in my presentation. The power of language and the power of things that are said to us as parents. And hey, Connie, the first thing I want to say is this thing happens when you have a child that gets a diagnosis. I can only speak of autism. I'm sure other syndromes can be included in this. But suddenly, your child becomes a number, right? They become a classification. They become severe level 3 nonverbal autism with a language impairment, right? And your county is reaching out, and you're trying to get Medicaid, and you're tracking data, and you're tracking numbers, and you're doing questionnaires, and you're filling things out. Can he? Maybe, sometimes, never. And suddenly, what I felt like was the color was disappearing from my sweet boy, and it was like he was a black and white writing on a piece of paper, right? And I remember trying to fight that, and for anyone else adjacent to the world of having a child with special needs, there are many times where I've been given, 5 pieces of paper stapled together, and it's all of Cooper's life. and it's incredibly drilled down. And this is no fault of anyone. This is required by funding and, but it's incredibly black and white. And it's basically a list of everything they can't do and they won't do, and everything is hard. It goes from your vaginal birth to medical to everything. And I can look at myself as a new mom sitting in a room sweating, right? Reading about my son. Typically someone reads it out loud and they ask for, is this factual? Is this true? And one of our meetings, and it's in my book, Cooper came with, because we didn't have care for him back then, and he came with. And I remember they were reading this about how delayed he was and how challenging he was and how severe he was. And I was and they're reading it to me and I'm reading it in my head. And I remember looking at Cooper. He was under the table and he was listening to Thomas the Train, and it was playing this happy song. And I was looking, and he had just these rosy cheeks and this gorgeous blonde hair and this porcelain skin, and he was wearing a bright colored t-shirt. And I looked at him and I was like, where's that boy in this? Right? Where's that boy? Where's that boy? I don't see him in here. And suddenly what happens is you lose sight of this beautiful, wonderful, amazing child because it's drilled down to his hardest parts. You wouldn't want that for you. I don't want that for me. And so I think what happens is parents, they try to fight this system, right? They try to keep the human in the data. And it's a never-ending fight, just so you know. Although we have a phenomenal teacher and para in school right now, and I will tell you, I don't feel that way right now. But there are parts that I do feel that way. So I can still remember really awful things that were said to us that were probably not awful to the person saying them. Maybe they were. We were told by a neurologist, like I waited for that appointment, big doctor, this is it, that if Cooper didn't, have so many words by age 4 that he'll never talk. I remember looking at his birthday like doomsday. I was like, what happens after age 4? Oh my gosh, right? I can still remember being at this clinic in Duluth in Scottish Rite. It's called Scottish Rite Clinic. It was like a language impairment hearing clinic. And it was like really the only thing that kind of could treat Cooper or help Cooper. Didn't. I swear he was the only autistic kid they've ever met in their entire life. And I remember watching Cooper through like this glass, observation window. And I was nursing Sawyer. I was nursing Sawyer. And I remember sweating postpartum. And I can still see her. Betsy. She walked in. And she just so matter-of-factly, she's like, obviously he's autistic and you're not doing anything about it. I can still see her and feel the weight of her words. We had never heard autism before. The way she dropped that bomb on us. And I mean, there was no love. There was no gentle. There was no easing into it. There was no kindness. I had a daycare provider that followed me out to my car when the kids were 3 and 1, younger it'd be 2.5 and 6 months old. And this is the hardest thing that's ever been said to me. She met me at my car, I was backed up against my car, and she was like, Cooper will never talk. He will never ride a bike. He will never make a friend. He's so messed up. And she's like, you're not doing anything. And, the interesting part is that, we were already doing OT. We were doing speech. He was already in early intervention. And we had made an appointment to get him diagnosed. And I will never forget it. I'll never forget the drive home. I'll never forget walking in and setting Sawyer's carrier down, and I just went and laid down. I couldn't get up. I couldn't find the strength to get up. I'll never forget it. And, as time has went on, things like that have still been said to us. And I want to be clear. I think parents do need tough love sometimes. I think that, I really do think that. I think there are times in my life that I need like tough love. I think there's times where I need someone to kind of pave the way and lead the way for me. I don't always know what to do. I had a wonderful speech therapist tell me that, we needed to start preparing for a life without words. And it was really powerful. She said it in a really gentle way with a hug, and we cried together, and then we got a speech device. So please know that I don't need to be dealt with white gloves, but I think some parents in the beginning do. And I did back then too. These are their babies. They're not numbers. They're not a diagnosis. They're not data. They're babies. Ones that we held. Ones that we love, that we want to protect. It was just, and as time went on, so we had a pretty tough experience with kindergarten. And I want to be clear, it wasn't the right setting for Cooper. So there were a lot of fails. He shouldn't have went to kindergarten, but no one gave us any other options. We should have, but we didn't know. In hindsight, it's 2020, but he went to kindergarten, and we did not have the teacher that was right for him. And that's where I'll leave that. But she would send me these like emails, and I'll never forget it. It would say things like, Cooper freaked out all day. Cooper spazzed out. Cooper, it would just be everything just terrible. And it took so long for people, how do I want to word this? I think that when you have a child who's challenging, and I will not deny that my wonderful, amazing kiddo can be incredibly challenging. He has a diagnosis of severe autism, right? But he's wonderful too. And he's a boy, and he's a human. And she would say all these awful things about him. And I just didn't know enough to say, like, you shouldn't talk about him like that. He's not freaking out. Cooper has a disability, and he's struggling. And behavior is communication. And we need to figure out why he's struggling. We need to help him. I didn't have enough courage to say that, or enough smarts, or enough, I just didn't. We always think that, I'm sure you watching think stepping into the role of advocacy is easy. It's not. These are our babies. You always think you're going to have the right thing to say. Well, most of the time you just cry. That's the honest truth. Like, most of the time you just cry. Because you can't fix this. And you can't make people like your child. We did therapy for a lot of years where it really felt like every day we were hearing about how bad he was and how challenging he was. It wasn't until Cooper was in 4th grade. So he went back to school in 4th grade. And we had this phenomenal teacher. So we had her for 4th and 5th grade. And she really changed our life. And I tell this story in every presentation I give. So, I go into his first conference, right? And mind you, I had never went to a conference before, because when you have a child with an IEP, typically it's done during the day with 10 people around the table, and it's stressful. Good or bad, it's stressful. And you miss out on these subtle norms that every other parent gets to do, like the book fair, I know that sounds so silly, but I wanted to go with the other parents and see the artwork on the walls and walk around. And it sounds so silly, but it mattered to me, and that's okay. So I went to his first conference as a fourth grader. And I sat down, and for 10, 15 minutes, she told me all these amazing things about Cooper. You guys, I can't even tell you. She's like, he's so smart. He knows his letters. He knows his sight words, his shapes and his numbers and his colors. And, she's like, he's going to adaptive Phi Ed. And she's telling me all this stuff. And Jamie's sitting next to me. And I'm a jokester. That's just who I am. I tend, when I'm nervous, I make jokes, funny or not. And I was like, okay, cut the crap. I was like, tell me how challenging he is, because I've been 8 years of being told that I have the most challenging kid. She's like, Kate, he's amazing. She's like, he's so smart. And he's fun. And he's loving. And she's like, he has this wrapped around his finger. And he loves coming to school. And he loves the bus. And she goes, here's the part that changed my life. She's like, every day he does his best. He tries as hard as he can. And she goes, I could tell you everything bad that happens. I could tell you everything hard, right? I could tell you everything hard. But she's like, why? You don't need to know. We don't do that for other kids. We don't write down everything bad that happened and give it to you. I mean, it doesn't work like that. So she's like, if it's challenging enough or serious enough, you will know. And I remember sitting there being like, what? Like, it was so wonderful. Oh my gosh. It was like life-changing. And I'll tell you, in 4th and 5th grade, he had the same teacher. And there were a couple times when we had to have a phone call. Cooper has a disability. He has challenges. He has struggles. One time he had an ear infection and his eardrum burst, and there were some big behaviors that led up to that. Well, I'll tell you, he couldn't communicate the pain. Of course there was. I had a toothache once, you guys. Wow. So I can't imagine what these nonverbal humans go through, right? They can't communicate pain. I just think if you can take one thing from me, if you can glean one thing from me, and you are a professional, please know I'm not harping on you at all. Please know I'm thankful if you're a teacher, a special education teacher, a para, a medical professional, a social worker, a Medicaid financial person. Thank you. But with the things you say, please remember to keep the child in your mind. Please. He's not a statistic. He's not a number. He's not data. He's not 75% he did it 75% of the time. He did it 85% of the time, whatever. He's not a classification. When that folder slid across the table, when you're getting your caseload, right? And it says severe nonverbal autism, level 3, Fed 3, remember that it's Cooper Swenson too. Please. We gotta keep the human in these kids, or they get lost. They get swept up. You don't understand. They get swept up. We get swept up as parents. We become other people waiting for the phone to ring and waiting for the bad to happen. And it's not healthy for any of us. So, thank you. Thank you for helping our kids. But please remember that your words matter. And you have the power. Now think about it. That teacher, Mrs. M, changed my whole outlook. You have the power as this professional to change these parents' outlooks, to encourage these parents, to lift them up, to turn them into advocates. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Yeah. Okay, so I am headed to Pittsburgh this weekend. So if anyone wants to do a meet and greet with me on Friday, make sure you click that pinned link and become a supporter. I'll let you know about that. I'm presenting at the Autism Caring Center on Saturday, and I am going to pop into a bookstore, a Barnes & Noble in Pittsburgh. Is it Settlers Way, I think, on Saturday, and sign some books. So if you want a signed book for me, you can get one if you're in Pittsburgh. I have a pretty exciting announcement coming tomorrow. If you are looking for a Mother's Day present for maybe your wife or someone, I have something for you. That's going to be really special. I will announce that tomorrow. I think that's all I got. Thanks for being here, everyone. Click that blue button, that never miss a video. Come join the supporter group. It's amazing. You don't have to do this alone. We are out here. Bye.